What's up, everybody? So we're going to be getting into 19.2 part 2 today, looking at the surface area of cylinders. All right. So, first thing, here's the formula for the surface area of cylinder, but you can see that I've shown what's going to be plugged into these values. Get this whole thing, draw yourself a cylinder, and then we'll get going. Okay, so first thing to recognize, surface area of a cylinder equals 2 times capital B, area of the base, plus circumference of the circular base times capital H, the height of the entire cylinder. Okay, the first thing I want you to realize is this is really the same formula that we had in the last lesson when we were finding the surface area of a prism. Here's the only difference. Instead of P for perimeter of the base, which is, the distance all the way around the base, all right, we're using C because they don't call the perimeter of a circle the perimeter. They call it its circumference. Okay, so that's really the only difference. And when we go to plug in these values, because we always have circular bases on cylinders, we know what we're going to plug in. The area of the base is going to be pi r squared. That's how you find the area of a circle. And the circumference of the circle is 2 pi r. All right. So just one thing to realize, when it goes to actually plugging in numbers, all we need is the radius of our circular base and the height of our cylinder, and we're good to go. Okay. So it looks a little crazy after you plug in these formulas, but it's really not too difficult. Again, I would say the difficulty comes down to typing it correctly in a calculator. So we just have to be careful with that. Okay. Cool. So let's go ahead and try this out, and let's get this first example. So go ahead and copy this, and we'll try it together. Okay. So first things first, let's get the formula written out. Surface area of a cylinder equals 2 times area of the base plus the circumference of the base times the height of the cylinder. And let's get those formulas plugged in. All right. By the way, let's get the formulas plugged in, and let's also plug in the radius because we don't have to take too many steps. So if we're doing area of the base, pi r squared, we can see we're given the radius, it's 4.5. So we can go ahead and say pi 4.5 squared. Okay, and then plus the circumference. I'm going to put circumference in parentheses because I want to make sure we get it typed in correctly. Remember, when in doubt, use parentheses around all of this stuff. Circumference is 2 pi, and our radius again is 4.5 times the height going from one base to the other, just like in prisms, looks like it's a 10. Okay, cool. So let's type this in and see how it goes. All right, so we got 2 and then in parentheses times pi 4.5 squared, bringing it out, plus circumference. Again, I'm going to do that in parentheses, so 2 pi 4.5, and then move it outside, times the height of the whole thing, which is 10. So I'm getting a 409.97. We're going to round one decimal place. So that 9 looks like it's rounding up to a 10, which is going to round this thing up to a 10. So 410.0 is probably the best way of representing this answer. Okay, so 410.0. The 0.0 might not be necessary, but I want to make us, it obvious that we rounded to one decimal place. And it looks like we're dealing with meters, so meters squared. Okay, so yeah, when you're given the radius and the height, nothing crazy. So I'm gonna have you guys go ahead and try one out just like that. Go ahead and plug those into the surface area formula and see what you get. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just start by writing out, just plugging stuff in because I feel like we're getting pretty good at this. So 2 times the area of the base. The base is a circle, so it's pi r squared. Our radius is 7.2, so pi 7.2 squared, plus the circumference, which is 2 pi r 7.2. All right, and then times the height of the entire thing, 15. Okay, so again, that's not anything too difficult. The formula is kind of sitting there. There's no guessing on it. We just need to make sure we type it in right. So let's go into 2 pi 7.2 squared plus 7.2 pi 7.2, goodness, times 15. Okay, sorry. So I'm getting 1,004. Okay, so I guess on this, the parentheses, if they reset in this calculator, it's good to know that it's actually still going to give you the right answer. I'm sorry, this is kind of crazy, but I wanted to make sure it's actually going to work. Okay, so 1,004.30, we'll round that to 1,004.3. All right, and it looks like we're dealing with meters, so meters squared. All right, we did it, guys. Okay, so let's try another type of problem. We just have a couple more here. We're going to look at problems here that are asking us for the height of our cylinder and giving us the surface area and the radius. Okay, so copy this and I'll show you what's going on. Okay, so first things first, let's just write out our formula and just kind of figure out what's going on here. Okay, so surface area equals 2 times area of base plus circumference times height. Okay, the reason why I'm starting with this is because we know the surface area on these problems. They're giving it to us. They're saying it's 157.08. Okay, inside the parentheses, we need to solve for height, so we need to plug in what we know. So 2 times the area of the base, pi r squared, so pi 2.5 squared. Okay, plus the circumference, which is 2 pi r, so 2 pi 2.5, times the height, which is what we don't know. Okay, so what we're ultimately solving for is height. Okay, here's what we need to realize on these problems. When we go to solve for height, we basically just have two things we need to get rid of. We need to get rid of this value right here that's being multiplied. Okay, we'll eventually do that by dividing. And then we need to get rid of this value right here that's technically being added to the height. Okay, so really this is just a two-step equation right here where the two things we're getting rid of are just kind of strange looking, but this is kind of how we want to do it. Okay, so the first thing I want to get rid of is I want to subtract this whole 2 pi 2.5 squared, which may seem weird, but I'm going to get rid of this whole thing at the same time. So 2 times pi 2.5 squared. Okay, I'm getting rid of this whole thing, and I'm going to also subtract it from this side. Okay, so let's start with this. Let's go ahead and get this value into our calculator. We don't want to, delete anything, but let's go ahead and do it. Okay, so 157.08, and then minus 2 times pi 2.5 squared. Okay, and we're getting 117.81. We're going to leave this in our calculator and then move on to the next step. Okay, so just as a placeholder, let's just write some of this, 117.810. I'm just going to write some of this here. Okay, but we're mostly just going to leave this in our calculator. So let me see, 810. Right, over on the right, these are gone, and we're left with this 2 pi 2.5 times height. Okay, now we can get rid of this by dividing by 2 pi 2.5. I'm going to leave this in the parentheses because if we don't, it'll mess it up. Okay, so divided by 2 pi 2.5. Okay, so let's see what happens in our calculator. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, let's see, I think I'm going to hit this enter button. Actually, I'm trying to think. If I hit the answer button, it'll bring this answer here. And then I can divide it by the 2 pi 2.5. All right. So, and it actually turns it into a fraction for me. Interesting. So I'm going to get 7.50. We'll round this to just 7.5. Okay. So weird process, but we just figured out that the height, is 7.5. Okay. I'm going to flip it around. All right. Make sure if you get a height that's a crazy, like in the thousands or even like sometimes maybe the hundreds, that's not what you would expect. If the radius is 2.5, you would expect the height to be something within reason, right? And we're talking about meters. Okay, so when you guys go to do these problems, like I said, just treat it like a two-step equation. Typing this into the calculator is what you need to be careful of. When in doubt, use parentheses. Okay, so I'm gonna have you guys try one of these, and then we'll be done here. So go ahead and do the same process here, finding the height of this cylinder with this radius and this surface area. Again, I would start by plugging it in to this formula here. All right, starting by plugging in the surface area, plugging in the formulas for the capital B and the C, and then going there and then solving for height. Try it out. Okay, and sorry, this should be a plus sign. Okay, so let's plug in what we know. Surface area is 318.49 times 2, the area of the base, pi r squared, our radius is 3.7. Okay, plus, and sorry, it should have been a plus sign. Our circumference is 2 pi 3.7 times the height. Right, and again, I'm going to treat this like a two-step equation. And by the way, like say instead of these crazy numbers, say it was this. Say this was a 5, this was a 3, plus 2 times h. Say I told you to solve this equation. You would know how to do that. You would subtract 3 from both sides. You divide 2 from both sides. You'd have your answer. That's exactly what we're doing here. We just have some, really weird values for our numbers. Okay, so yeah, let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to first subtract this whole 2 times pi 3.7 squared from both sides. All right, and yeah, let's start by typing that into our calculator. So, all right, so 318.49 minus 2 times pi 3.7 squared. All right, so there's that. I'm going to press the answer key right now. So I'm going to take this thing down, and I know I'm eventually going to divide it by something. So let's just recall what we're going to be dividing by. Okay, which by the way, we can write this as a little placeholder. So 232.473. Sorry. Okay, so on the right, those are gone, and I have this 2 pi 3.7 times height. Now I'm going to divide both sides by the 2 pi 3.7, keeping the parentheses around it, because if we don't, we'll get the wrong answer. All right, so let's go ahead and divide by 2 pi 3.7. Oops, almost forgot the parentheses. 2 pi 3.7. All right, I'm getting 9.99. That's going to round this up to a 10, which rounds this 9 to a 10. So we're going to write this as 10.0. Okay, and we're dealing with meters. Okay, so yeah, these last couple problems were a little tricky, but really for me, if you understood the first couple ones where we were just finding the surface area of the cylinder, that's really the main thing I want you to take away from this. But I wanted you guys to kind of stretch your abilities a little on these last couple problems. But the calculator, that's the big thing on these. So be careful when you're doing these problems. Okay, I'll see you guys.